Alright, welcome back to the shop. I've got this, what looks like an H.M. Smith vise. This was my grandfather's, or at least it was my grandfather's shop. Just laying on the ground. I do not know if this is, I know that there's something wrong with it. I'm not sure to what extent though, so I guess the first thing is just to get it taken apart and sort of see if it can be taken apart. It might be seized up in here. Get it freed up, get it cleaned up, and see what we got to do to get it working again. So, let's get started. So I was able to get it disassembled. The end here had been dropped or kicked around and swelled up slightly, so I had to file that down, and then filing was working, but because it was the very end, I just went ahead and hit it with the flap disc, and that allowed me to remove it, but now there's a bunch of 100-year-old grease in here, so I'm gonna scrape out as much grease as I can and take this to the parts washer and get it cleaned up. And I mentioned this before, so if you've heard it, I apologize, but the Media Blaster does not work well on stuff that's greasy or wet. So the parts solvent that I use will do a good job of removing a lot of the grease and grime, and then when it dries out, it's a good material that the Media Blaster can actually handle. So, but the key to having a good parts washer is not to chowder up the fluid with with any unnecessary grease. So you want to try to remove as much as you can. I mean, as dumb as it may sound, you want to have pretty clean parts before you put it in the parts washer. So clean these off. I'm going to use maybe some solvents of some sort and some brushes and get it relatively clean, and then bring it to the parts washer. Alright, so I've got it through the parts washer, but it's pretty interesting because, let me find a clean piece of towel. I've got this thing, you know, pretty cleaned up. I mean, but it's still just filthy. It's got this residual on there. And there's parts that look like metal, but the grease is on here so good that, I mean, I'm finding all sorts of... See that? I find these crevices and stuff, and just when I think I've got it sort of cleaned, then, you know, here comes a whole nother pile of grease from somewhere. So this is going to take a lot more cleaning, and I'm not going to bore you with all that. But what I want to do now is sort of get a better idea. I think I misspoken and said H.M. Smith, but this looks like a B. It's really hard to tell. Yeah, it looks like a B to me. It's H.B. Smith & Co., Westfield, Mass. Number 1, patented 1865. August 1st, 1865. Alright, so I can't wait to look that up and find out some more about this, and I'm going to try to include some patent drawings if I can find them. And then I'm going to, once I know a little bit more history on this, I'm going to see whether I want to treat this. I don't, and part of the interesting thing about tools that have been repaired is, you know, that sort of adds to the history. I'm not necessarily one of those people that wants to restore it exactly back to factory conditions. One, because, you know, that it's not my main interest, and two is because I probably don't even have the skill set to do that. So will be perfectly happy getting this thing back together and semi-functional, and leaving, you know, somebody put a pile of bronze on here to weld this, some sort of a steel jaw to this cast face. And I don't see anything wrong with that repair, so I'm not going to try to improve on it. I might knock down this one high booger there, but anyway, I think this thing's pretty neat. The one thing that I do notice that, you know, I'm not real thrilled about is the slop in the threads. The threads in here are just as sharp as can be, and you see how rolled over these are? They should be square like that. So this, you know, if this vise could talk, imagine how many times this thing went back and forth and back and forth. But up here, there's a chunk missing, and that chunk seems to have, you know, sort of welded itself somewhere in along there. And I tried to pick it out. I'll continue to try to pick it out, but I'm not sure that's not showing up too well. But I'm just sort of breaking off screwdrivers when I'm trying to do this, which isn't a productive exercise. So, and this is so far in, I don't think that it will affect the ability for this to close all the way. If it does, I'll have to take a little flat file, I think they call it a locksmith file or jeweler's file, and get in there and manually clean these threads out. So that'll be tedious, but we will chew that food when we get there. So in the meantime, I'm going to just continue to clean this up and do a little research and figure out how I want to finish this thing out, whether I should paint it or just try to get the rust off of it. And anyway, got a couple different choices, so I'll bring you back in a little bit. Alright, so I've been working on the vise, and before the Media Blaster it sort of looks like this. And I think this is sort of, you know, not only 100 and some odd years of just grit and grime and everything on there, this is sort of dried up from the Media Blaster, but I also think that there's a mill scale on there from the factory. That in mill scale, I don't know exactly what mill scale is, but I know it's hard, and it can actually act as a tool to preserve, or a means of preserving the steel. Sort of like oxidation on copper. When copper starts to turn brown or green or whatever, that's a means of protecting it. And I was watching A-Bomb 79 he was building a workbench, and I wrote him, and he's a real popular guy. I didn't expect a response back from him, and I said, "Yo, Adam, what's up with the tabletop? How are you going to finish it?" And he says, "Oh, he just leaves the mill scale on there and is going to use WD-40. So there is a time and a place for mill scale, apparently. And anyway, this in this particular thing, it's hard to discern what's grit and what's grime and what's mill scale. And the way I've been media blasting this, it's just, you know, been slow going is all that is to say. But the reason it's slow going, and hopefully you can see this, but the amount of grease that's in this thing is somewhat remarkable. I'm going to try to, if you can see, this is really going to be hard to do, but this whole wall is just grit and grime. You can see me scrape that out of there. And it's just, this is going to be a horrible video. So hard to see. Alright, there you are. So that's just grease caked in there since the dawn of time, apparently. So I'm going to have to clean all that back out and then bring this back over to the Media Blaster. So let me just keep doing that, and I don't want to bore you with the cleaning. So next time you see this, it'll be cleaned up and go from there. Alright, so I've got the vise cleaned up. It's to the point where it shouldn't make me filthy, dirty, greasy every time I touch it. At least not completely filthy, dirty, and greasy. Alright, so there was no mechanism to hold this in place before. So what I did is, you saw a clip earlier of me machining the center out of this to make it fit. I sort of overshot it by maybe a tenth or so. But anyway, my problem now is I never really anticipated the size of this. So I could either try to grind that down, or, you know, I think I could turn that with the mini lathe, skin that down to a smaller size, and still be where I need to be. And in conjunction with that, I might get in here and take some of these high spots out. So let me go ahead and do that. Alright, so a typical vise is going to have just a little pin and like maybe a spring washer in the back that's going to sort of hold it in place, because all you need is a small washer, just because you only want to open the vise. You only want to slide the jaw backwards. So you only need a tiny bit of force to slide this whole mechanism backwards. And the reason I know that that's a tiny little washer is because on this vise here, I had the occasion to try to open something up one day, so I hooked whatever it is on here and proceeded to blow the inside of this thing apart. And it was like the first thing I ever did with this vise, and I broke it, like literally the first thing I ever did with it. But anyway, I don't like that design. So what I'm going to try to do is beef it up with the piece that I turned in the mini lathe, and I think this is going to work well. However, my issue at present is that in order to get this to fit in here, and this of course has to spin around, is I have to get this bolt to tighten up without a head on it. So that's sort of an interesting dilemma that I haven't had the occasion to run into before. So I'm going to have to try to back this out of here. And I think the only sensible thing to do is cut a slot in here and turn it into a flathead. So let me try to do that. Alright, let's see how this works. That's in there. Now I'm not exactly sure when to put this in a video or whatnot, but I think I got another job. I think I got another job in another town, and it's gonna significantly change what this channel does, at least for the, I don't know, year, something like that, maybe longer. It is gonna be a big change. And oh no, it's not seasoned down tight enough. God dang it. Alright, so when I first started machining this, I overshot this, thinking that this bearing is going to collapse a lot further than it does. It really doesn't have much room for collapsing, but we're not far off. I'm going to put a couple pins in here, and that effectively is going to raise the metal up. Add a couple little divots in here that will raise up, and that collar should fit a little tighter on there. So that works pretty good. I can't even get it on there now. Alright, sorry I had you out of frame there. Alright, so still out of frame. Crisis averted. Those little pins were enough to raise that up and keep this in place. So this is going to keep, you know, it's a 154-year-old vise. Anyway, what I want to do now is grind this head down, and then that should be, and then I'll peen this over so that it's locked in. Alright, so what I was saying before, sorry I changed my mind in the middle of the time lapse. What I was saying before is that I'm going to take another job. I'm pretty sure I'm going to take another job. I'm excited about it, but you know, it's under weird circumstances. As you know, well, the people who've been with the channel, my mother died in April, unexpectedly. And that's really sort of upset the apple cart in terms of, you know, what I'm going to do. And there's a lot of work to do up there, and it's not far, a couple hours north of here, still in Florida. And part of this whole thing, this Joe's shop, I'm named after my grandfather, Joe. And he had a big junk shop. Started out as an automobile shop and part antique shop. And it sort of morphed into this giant, roughly 15,000 square foot garage that morphed from automobile stuff to sort of everything. Appliances, antiques, old motors, lots of hand tools, lots and lots and lots and lots of hand tools. This vise was one of many piled underneath his workbench. The vices that you've seen me do, virtually all of them have come from his shop. He had a lot of tools, and this shop hasn't been gone through since he died. And you know, we're working on, I think, about 10 years now, almost 8 years, something like that. I forget exactly what year he died. I should know that. But anyway, the shop is in utter disrepair, and I think that, you know, well, what has to be done is it has to be gone through and it has to be organized, and it's not. Anyway, it's got a lot of problems. And this channel very well may turn into Joe's shop, but, you know, in every sense of the word. So, I will not have a workshop, or I shouldn't say that. My focus will not be on restoring hand tools and stuff like that. It will be to control the bleeding and salvaging an old property that's been derelict, that is chock full of old tools. And I mean, lots and lots and lots of tools. And you know, I love tools. I don't sell tools. I have no interest in selling tools. I don't plan on making money off of selling tools. I mean, I'm not talking about giving them away or anything like that, but you know, I'm a hoarder when it comes to tools. I see no reason why not to fix them and use them. The question is what does that property become? I don't know. There's too much left to doubt. There's just too many variables in the mix for me to sort of begin to figure out what my game plan is. But you know, the thing is I really love the YouTube stuff. You know, the people that I interact with, the stuff that I learn has just been indispensable. It's just been a real treat, and been a real, you know, mental health stuff. Really, no joke. You know, it's hard losing your mom. And being able to come out in the shop and relax and sort of just get your mind off of stuff has been, you know, really therapeutic for me. And I like that. So, anyway, I do not want to fight for the same ground twice. I don't want to lose the viewers that I have now, and I don't want to, you know, give up on, you know, the ground that I've made so far. So, what I need to do is sort of maintain a balance between, you know, creating content, but then also doing what I like to do. I mean, I don't want to give up this part of my life in some chase of some other pecuniary interest or whatever. I mean, but you have to. I mean, you have to sort of make sure that you don't go broke in the mix. So I mean, that's part and parcel of the whole thing. But you know, this is a lot of fun for me, and I don't want to write it off. What I want to do is get a bigger shop. I've been working in a
a back patio that's roughly 10 feet wide, 25 feet long. It is not a workshop. It is what I have for now, and it's served me well, but it's just no longer, you know, sufficient, and my priorities have changed. So anyway, all that is to say is that this channel is going to change a lot, and it could change very quickly in the sense that when my start date, you know, once we finish negotiating the terms of my contract, then, you know, I'll have a couple weeks to get packed up and moved, and the tools aren't all going to go with me at first. I've got, you know, not only do I have tools to move, but, you know, I've got an office, I've got a tractor, I've got 2 vehicles, I've got a lot of stuff. But anyway, I don't know how much time I'm going to have to dedicate to the channel in the long run. I do have a couple small projects that I plan on getting done this week. I don't know if I'm going to start in the fan for now, because I would hate to get the fan all apart and then, you know, stop, because that would be a real problem. That's when parts get lost. So I think I need to let this, I'm going to carry on as normal this week, and then see how things shake out with this new job, in terms of callbacks and whatnot, and then the channel might go dark for a little while. We'll see how things go. But anyway, the part about the shop, I don't have a tremendous amount of footage on that now, and I don't think that I would do it any justice by including it in this segment. So I'm just going to sort of put it out there and let you know what's happening with the channel, and later on I will do a full-on sort of soup to nuts history of the shop, because it is very interesting, and it is very full of very interesting tools. I don't know why I said very so many times, but anyway, it's a really neat place. It's got a lot of neat history. It's relatively sad to see it go the way it is going, but, you know, anyway, I just have to sort of smile in the face of adversity and keep plugging through, and I'll be happy to be back home closer to my family. But anyway, let me get the other parts of this vise and get it assembled and quit carrying on about this thing. So, alright, so the HB Smith vise is sort of interesting because there's a pin here, and you'll see in the drawings, I'm going to include some drawings here, of a tape or a wedge. This is designed to hold a pipe. So that plug-in is arguably the patentable, or the thing that discerns it from every other vise under the sun. And I do not have that piece, and, you know, for a myriad of reasons, I'm not going to make that. But anyway, I was just interested in getting this vise cleaned up, making it look a little bit better, and so anyway, that's my HB Smith 1865 vise. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and anyway, have a good night.